Hiya! Welcome to this, my 57th episode of VideoFuzzy. I'm your host, Terry J. Aman, sifting my basket of media memories, and in this installment, titled Cutting That LVAD Wire, I chat up the first few episodes of True Blood on HBO turned up to my classic collection, along with a fairly pivotal episode of Grey's Anatomy, you can probably guess which one, plus current shows, classic movies, and a few thoughts on Mr. Robot. Welcome to the show.
He doesn't have that on video, does he? We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy.
Writing this up, it wasn't looking good. My current collection was at the mercy of where they air and whether I'm recording it, but I spent a chunk of this past week and most of Saturday plowing through my classic collection. To be honest, I was so close to that 800 disc milestone. Yay! Cataloged through disc 800! I just wanted to clear it. Plans were to head over to the City Brew coffee shop after breakfast Sunday and get my writing done, but it was snowing pretty good when we woke up and all day long, so I hunkered down inside where it was warm and yeah, I made a little progress, but there's a reason I really love putting this together at the coffee shop. Well, a couple of reasons. First, there's always like a million things to do at home, so if I'm upstairs writing, I'm always aware of, the dishes, the vacuuming, and Sunday especially, the snow shoveling. More than that, however, I feel there's such a great vibe at the City Brew in Bismarck. Love the space, love the staff, love their music selection. So when I woke up Monday morning, Veterans Day, and for sure, quick belated shout out to our veterans. I want to appreciate your service. Thank you. The air was cold, but the sun was out and the sky was clear, and I was like, I am heading over there. So glad I could too. It has been too long. White chocolate mocha, pop covers, and light jazz, the perfect soundtrack to explore a few media memories.
Friday Night Feature.
Getting right into it, the True Blood saga in my collection unfolded a little bit more since the pilot episode, Strange Love, turned up last time, and I've now seen that as well as the second episode, the First Taste, on disc 781, and the third episode, Mine, on disc 799, so this feels like a good series to pull up and feature. True Blood traces the increasingly interconnected lives of the residents of Bon Temps, Louisiana, a sleepy little parish generally, except in Charlene Harris's version of it there are vampires. Well, they've been there for years, but with the advent of synthetic blood, they can be a lot more open about it. As of the third episode, we've seen vampires move at super speed, wield super strength, we've seen them cast glamours, we've seen them nest, we've seen them get attacked by hunters, we've seen them keep humans around as sippy cups, we've seen how ravenous they are as lovers, and we've watched one of them, Stephen Moyer's Civil War-era vampire Bill Compton, take an interest in sweet, young, otherwise nondescript beyond... Oh wait, she's stunningly beautiful and can read minds, but sure, yeah, no one you'd ever notice, waitress Sookie Stackhouse, played by Anna Paquin. Sookie's got a brother, Jason, who is outrageously hot and sexually busy. Her best friend Tara's got crazy mother issues, and no wonder with Tara's brother Lafayette being a physically astonishing hustler working as a fry cook and contractor. He's impossibly good looking, like damn near everyone in this burg, and also gay, so gay and black in the backwater South in the 1990s, I'm sure that's never a problem. Sam Merlot is Sookie and Lafayette's boss. His issues aren't explored right away, but Arlene or someone says Sam barks in his sleep, which Lafayette dismisses as, white people are crazy. There's way more to it than that, obviously, but this is enough to start with. Jason is shirtless a lot. This is that part of Louisiana where apparently everyone works out a lot and no one's ever really heard of fried food. Like, there's a couple of older folks who've settled into their bodies some, but just about anyone else, if they're going to be on camera for any length of time at all, they are banging. The Sheriff Bellefleur, he's sort of representing the bodies of like 90% of, be fair, everyday Americans you see when you see them. When a woman turns up dead, Sheriff Bellefleur finds a video she took where she was tied standing up and Jason was screwing her from behind, his hands around her throat. And instead of watching it all the way through to the end, he leaps up, arrests Jason, and they all watch it together in his office down at the station, where... and this was Jason thinking that he'd killed her because she just hung there after like she was dead, and he freaked out and ran off. Then a moment later she comes to and laughs, and she's not dead at all, but yeah, Sheriff Bellefleur could have saved what ended up being a weird fanboy porn screening by reviewing all the evidence first, especially if you've ever heard of something called a fast-forward button. The thing is, though, this series is produced by Alan Ball, a strong voice in the LGBTQ community who enjoys provocative storytelling, and Charlene Harris's Southern Vampire Mystery series had endless potential for beautiful people in piquant situations and social commentary. The books came out while Ball was producing his HBO series 6 Feet Under, which I've elsewhere claimed as a mystical center for my media collection. Everything is connected, and usually by not too many steps away from either Alan Ball's 6 Feet Under or Aaron Sorkin's Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, which the shows themselves I keep discovering connections, so it for sure feels true. Per Wikipedia, Ball was born in Georgia in the 1950s, so these stories would absolutely resonate with him. Stories about countercultural clashes and a search for safety and belonging in what can feel like a dangerous world. A story that paints vampires in, if not heroic necessarily protagonists, then at least shades of grey. Harris crafts a world where, now that there's synthetic, not human blood to drink, vamps are free to come out of the coffin, as it were, to live openly among humans, and Alan Ball explored mostly strong, mostly satisfying storylines. For sure the HBO presentation was engaging and enjoyable. I feel like I watched for at least the first 3 seasons, and yeah, fan of Buffy here, fan of Angel, and never read the books, but I thought they did a great job with the setting and these characters. Along with Sookie's mind reading, the story explored intersectional points like, okay, vampires are strong and ravenous, but have lived most of eternity in isolation, so now that they can live more openly, they're still figuring out how. Humans are learning that vampire blood itself has mystical healing restorative properties, such as, just for one example, potency. Some humans were just trying to figure out how to fight them and kill them, and some people were attacking them simply for being different, counter to God's good plan, preaching and forming killer cults against them, which it doesn't take all that much imagination to hear the religious mobilization against gays or transsexuals or interracial marriage or drug use or name your marginalization and bigotry. There's a storyline exploring it, which held a lot of appeal, and I think they did a good job with it. As of the 3rd episode, they were still building that world. We encountered a nest and watched Bill interact with them, one of them an elder vampire to him, and we learned a little bit more about vampire history and hierarchy, foreshadowing the appearance of Alexander Skarsgård as Eric Northman and the introduction of the vampire nightclub Fantasia. The show is also pretty good with the plot twists. Opening scene of the pilot episode, some yokels stop at a gas station asking if they can buy some of that synthetic blood they'd heard about. The guy at the counter was all goth, vamp as life, heavily pierced and tattooed and made up with long black hair and scary eyes. He scared the yokels away for their insolence, while this scruffy redneck looked on with interest. After they leave, the redneck plunks a 4-pack of True Blood on the counter, bares his fangs, and warns the counter guy, "Don't he ever mask as one of my kind, or he'll die sure enough." Opening credits, Jace Everett.
When you came in, the air went out, and every shadow filled up with doubt. I don't know who you think you are, but before the night is through, I'm gonna do bad things with you. I'm gonna do bad things with you.
Seriously dark images of death, decay, swamps, seduction, segregation, the KKK, religious fervor, and essentially video of America's darkest moments and something more. A sense of assured irreparability to this darkness. There's no coming back, no bridging this chasm, which you might imagine would be hard to convey by means of the opening credits of a television program, but they did, and it does. The level of weird imagery we've come to expect in any given American Horror Story opener, but at the time the only real comparative was likely film of Nazi war atrocities or something stitched together by David Lynch. Hardly unprecedented, just probably not so otherwise concentrated. Yeah, cool show, hot actors, great plot twists, lots of skin. I've got a lot of the first seasons of it, I think. It was impossible to ignore that between most of these plot twists there were long stretches of, let's charitably call it, suspense that sometimes worked and sometimes did not. characters would wander into subplots that carried with them varying levels of credibility and interest. I mostly started to go off the show when it was revealed that Sookie was part Fae, and when a lot of the action shifted to New Orleans, and I wasn't especially moved by those storylines. It just seemed to be unraveling at a moment when I really had a lot of other stuff to watch, and yeah, they probably had lots of really great storytelling left to do, but they went ahead and did it without me. All that said, the seasons I did archive were mostly enjoyable, and I look forward to checking them out as they turn up.
Cross Connection.
Since Alan Ball produced this series, there's no real Studio 6 Feet Under to be played here. Everything that happened in True Blood is necessarily barely a step removed from 6 Feet Under. Rather, my interest was piqued by all the cross-connections I discovered cataloging my classic collection. Gonna start with Boston Legal, actually. Second season finale of May of 2006 I found on discs 776 and 777. Jerry Ryan appears as a celebrity, shoots a paparazzo in a darkened alleyway. Co-Star Trek franchise alum William Shatner is Denny Crane, and this has become standard, propositions Jerry 7 of 9 Ryan simultaneously for sex, marriage, and representation. Episodes also feature Robert Wagner, Wes Craven, Howard Hessman, Parker friggin' Posey, and this was one of the ones with Ed Begley Jr. actually in it, so should we need it to reiterate our single step of all of these people now from 6 Feet Under. Ties traced to Christopher Guest's semi-scripted productions, WKRP in Cincinnati, Heart to Heart, Austin Powers, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Scream, so also Dirt and Friends and Cougar Town, and oh yeah, speaking of which, I ran into Busy Phillips in the second season episodes of Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles, so that links Cougar Town through Summer Glau to Firefly and Serenity and, oh, well, everything Joss Whedon ever did. That Terminator episode also featured Dean Norris, so we now got connections to Breaking Bad and Claws. Also from Boston Legal, I turned up the third season episode The Verdict, which featured, damn near everyone, along with David Dean Trellis, preeminent PP Lincoln Myers. I got Peg Bundy, Taranga Leela, and Gemma Teller-Morrow, Katie Sagal as the provocatively incestuous Barbara Little, whose scandalous behavior threw some reasonable doubt and saved her son, Scott, played by Ashton Holmes. We got everyone in this one. We got Curtis Armstrong, we got Tyler Labine, we got Jane friggin' Lynch, and Armin Shiberman, solidly golden threads running all through my collection. A very cool episode, and I'm glad I found it in here. Other connections I found, well, this one's not quite that exciting. I referred to Katie Sagal's appearance in the Kurt Sutter production Sons of Anarchy. I saw Jay Carnes stepped across from Sutter's production The Shield, appeared as federal agent Josh Cohn on that show. Kind of feels like different rooms in the same house, but yeah, connection. Also saw Seth Green in an episode of My Name is Earl, so that was fun. A couple of Rescue Me alums, Jack McGee, Chief Jerry Riley, turned up in a third season episode of Criminal Minds, and Stephen Pasquale, I knew I recognized him, turned up in a first season episode of 6 Feet Under, so there's a few more connections there. Although Rescue Me's Diane Farr worked longer with Studio 60's Judd Hirsch in Numbers, same distance from a smaller target, Hirsch was only like in the pilot episode of that series, so Rescue Me has solid links to both of them. Then I found a 7th season episode of Monk where a hypnotist took our title character through age regression therapy and encountered Ruth Williamson as a secretary in a suspect's office. Ruth I'd seen more recently as Hattie Grubman in a 4th season episode of Nip Tuck. Dean Norris also appeared in Nip Tuck, so here's where I'll pause to explore him as a golden thread running through my media collection.
Golden thread.
I'm showing Dean Norris in, I've almost certainly got this one, actually, a 2nd season episode of True Blood. I've got him in, I mentioned Nip Tuck and Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles, Breaking Bad, and Claws. I show him, back in the early 90s here in Lawnmower Man. I may or may not have this, but he showed up in The X-Files. I got him in Millennium, The Practice, The Cell, 6 Feet Under, 24 Boston Legal. There he was also in The West Wing. So that's another pretty central link he represents. He was in Grey's Anatomy. He was in Saving Grace. He was in Bones. I'm showing him in Lost and Criminal Minds and The Glades. He was in Medium, The Big Bang Theory, and The Good Guys with Bradley Whitford. And I archived, I think, at least one episode of Dark Blue and Castle and Body of Proof. So those right there, he connects with everything Nathan Fillion ever did and Dana Delaney ever did, which, since the two of them were doing each other in Desperate Housewives, is is a pretty tight connection. Well, the man does great work. Not too surprising to see he gets cast a lot, but yeah, fun to see how often he turns up and shows that I've enjoyed enough to collect. So, good work.
Diving into my classic collection.
True Blood had some work to do to be the feature this time. As I mentioned, it cataloged through disc 801 this time, and I found a lot of worthwhile material in this set of discs. One show I was absolutely going to lift up for further examination when it turned up was a second season episode of Grey's Anatomy called, evocatively enough, 17 Seconds. The title refers to a UNOS listing, a United Network of Organ Sharing, the National Clearinghouse of Organ Donors and Recipients, which was figuring pretty centrally for one character at the moment, Denny Duquette, played by John Winchester. Jeffrey Dean Morgan, beloved of the insanely besotted Izzy Stevens, played by Katherine Heigl, a woman who was in her 20s, experiencing her first all-consuming love, horrified by Denny signing a do not resuscitate order by what she sees as him giving up, aghast that at the moment a donor heart is available, Denny's condition might be too stable through the use of his left ventricular assist device, or LVAD. The team sent to Mercy General to collect the donor heart discovered the initial donor is not viable, and an in-house recipient, a rival claimant, may have a stronger claim for the organ next in line. Geographically, the coincidences in play here are jaw-dropping, but Izzy is not having it. Denny needs the heart. She will move him up the list. That other donor's claim registered a mere 17 seconds. 17 seconds ahead of Denny's. In her mind, it's his heart. Damn protocol. Damn UNOS priorities. She lies to the team collecting the heart. She and Denny pledge their love to each other, and Izzy Stevens cuts Denny Duquette's LVAD wire. Just as the cardiothoracic genius she was depending on keeping Denny alive through the resulting trauma is caught in some crossfire outside the hospital and bleeds out through the closing credits. The next few episodes, and indeed the following season, basically become that meme of Medea opening a handgun and the words, "Say LVAD. Say the word LVAD to me one more time." It was the 4th season opener of Dallas, Who Shot JR, except we all watched her cut the wire. George was in the room when she did it, while she committed medical malpractice and attempted murder in the desperate attempt to steal a heart from someone else on the UNOS list. Like, if he missed that one, he'd have to start over at the bottom. The UNOS people want recipients to stay alive. Denny's chances, they say it out loud, were so good, he might live for years. If he missed this one, he'd catch the next one. But yeah, that was an episode of high drama, hardly the most ridiculous thing that happens in a show that includes a scene where it just turned up in this set, season 5 opener. Dr. Yang slips on some ice outside Seattle Grace and a giant icicle breaks off right then, falls like a guillotine and stabs her in the gut. It's a complete toss-up, incidentally, whether this or her appearance as a porn star actually in 6 Feet Under is less believable, but both are quite silly. That episode was significant. I also encountered the series finale of Brian Fuller's Showtime production Dead Like Me as rebroadcast on the Sci-Fi Network. Ellen Muth as George Lass reaps a serial killer who apparently either becomes a graveling like Eric McCormick's Ray Summers' abusive character, or else attracts them. George faced down the Ray Summers graveling by reaping him. As she touched him, he screamed and turned to ash. It's disturbing. Well, graveling intervention isn't so tough to track. Usually reapers are given a heads up as the celestial clockwork is turning, but we watch as Ray's rogue graveling activity causes an unexpected death near one of George's clients, and she shuts him down. Lots of good stuff in this set. Not so much President Bush's network address to the nation on immigration and border security, or I found the first debate between Obama and McCain from September of 2008. Just nice to have those should I ever need. I encountered Eddie Izzard in the 2006 presentation of The Secret Policeman's Ball. That was a lot of fun. He's a reliably fun stand-up. More the riches at that point, less glam and heels. Made up somewhat for Sarah Silverman. She was still trying to do adorable kitten says shocking things stand-up. I'm not. I see the appeal, but she got better. She's gotten better with time. The Mighty Boosh was fun. They did nutty amateur stage swordplay augmented by sound direction into towering, heart-wrenching drama between a sadistic seller of pies and a long-suffering, "Oh, it would break your heart how no longer could she live in this world of wicked pie-selling beans. Other fun included a not exactly sign language interpretation of Natalie Imbruglia's Torn, and it seemed not, I'd hardly call it, over-rehearsed murder sketch based on Clue, investigating the apparent murder of Russell Brand, who, since I'd just watched him host my recording of the 2008 MTV VMAs, I largely fast-forwarded his stand-up in this venue, but generally he was at the top of his game at this point and probably did a pretty good job. It was all a benefit for Amnesty International, and I enjoyed finding it in my collection. I mentioned the 2008 VMAs, and standouts from this set included performances by Christina Aguilera and Britney Spears, Rihanna's Disturbia, which I haven't gotten out of my head since finding it here, and no worries, I love that song. Loved running into the Ting Tings' Shut Up and Let Me Go, and Paramore's live performance of Misery Business was excellent. Along with Chris Brown, Tokyo Hotel, and Linkin Park marking the 25th anniversary of the celebration, MTV awarded a first-ever Moon Man to Britney Spears for her video, Piece of Me. I mentioned his role in this. Russell Brand did pretty well throughout, kept the show moving, implied he'd had sex with a Jonas brother or at least stole one of their promise rings, but yeah, apart from the occasionally edgelord and creepy, the since-while Mr. Katy Perry kept his commentary light and breezy in this run-up to the 2008 elections, the night closing with a feel-good, lower-octane Kid Rock's All Summer Long. Naturally, because it's a VMA in my collection, see episode 26, Bringing the Thunder, it got recorded out of order across 3 different discs, but that's not really any kind of an issue. I just enjoyed the videos and the live performances. I'd say the same about Josh Groban's live performance of a medley of classic and current TV themes at the 2008 Emmys, which I recorded that as well as Don Rickles' co-presentation with Kathy Griffin of Best Reality Show to The Amazing Race. That was friggin' hilarious. Let me get in here like I want it too. And then his acceptance for Best Individual Performance in a Variety Show. Don Rickles was always on point. The man's mind, he grabbed intuitively the most devastating take from any given situation. He panned comedy gold. We are better as a solar system for having produced this mind. Let's see, what else? Season 3 opener of Heroes, more episodes of Fringe turned up, more episodes. Actually, the series finale of The West Wing turned up in this set. That was kind of amazing. Well, it really wasn't that great an episode. It was kind of like the business of that episode, titled Tomorrow, was setting the stage for a show no one was ever going to see, and they knew it. Sorkin's follow-up, Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, recounted a conversation between Steven Weber as network executive and Bradley Whitford as producer. One feels he must be recalling verbatim from some previous encounter regarding Whitford's character Danny Tripp pitching a show set at the UN. Oh, the red meat. The tearing apart of this, I can't imagine what show they might be referencing. That episode, The Rat Party, 6th episode in, that explored theme Sorkin has absolutely dug into before. Military personnel and working class Americans are more important than television people. Any success we achieve in life is predicated on those who have come before, i.e. respect your elders, and if you are of a traditionally marginalized group and you've achieved some means of doing something about it, you send that elevator back down. Along with trying to set Matt up on a date with, 3 randos, I'd initially had throw pillows that seemed unnecessarily disrespectful, but 3 pretty young randos who can't grasp the role of a writer on a sketch comedy show. That was a pretty full episode. I hadn't completely made the connection. I knew Mike Schur was largely responsible for Parks and Rec, but I glimpsed his name in the opening credits in an episode of The Office as I was cataloging it, and yep, IMDb reports Schur wrote like a dozen episodes of that show. It could surprise me. I don't think I archived a lot of that series, but the episodes I'm finding, I'm really enjoying them. Other highlights, I encountered those episodes of Boston Legal with Jerry Ryan, Season 2 closer, and oh wow, that constellation from the 3rd season's The Verdict. Everything I covered already in Cross Connections. I found the Spanish Inquisition episode of Monty Python's Flying Circus. I wasn't expecting that. I'll probably just close out here with this turned up. Jon Stewart and his Wacky List of Things. The Daily Show back in 2006 examined what Republican leadership and the Family Research Council were describing as a network of gay staffers who they suggested were covering up for Representative Mark Foley, Republican of Florida, and his allegedly untoward text messages and email communication with young male pages. Jon Stewart pulled up a diagram of what this network of gay staffers might look like. Well, A list of their positions, that is, their positions in government. No photos were leaked of what these gay staffers might look like, but from their titles you get an idea. According to the diagram, we had the Secretary of Agriculture, Sergeant of Well-Defined Arms, Gay Sergeant-at-Arms, Muscle Daddy, Undersecretary, Top Secretary, Speaker of the House Music, Capital Fashion Police, Anal Czar, Majority Whip, Gay Street Lobbyist, Gay Political Action Committee, which would actually have been funnier to just call it Gay PAC, practically writes itself, and the Chief of Staff, all answering, he said, to Donald Rumsfeld. Though, now I think that crew answers to Lindsey Graham, if I'm not mistaken. Rumsfeld's been out of there for a while. They've added a few positions since then, too. I believe the Ministry of Fabric and the Envoy to the Lesbian Embassy and the Secretary of Transsexuals. That's a whole department of transsexuals they've added since 2006. I think Mitch McConnell's wife, Elaine Chao, might still be in charge of that one. Ellen is still more or less in charge. She's not quite as active, delegates more, but still manages the occasional high-level summit appearance. So between her and George Takei and Neil Patrick Harris, we stay pretty active. I thought the fun thing John closed with, and it's still relevant more than a decade later here, is this network of gay staffers in Washington, he said, controls everything, except clearly our government's policies towards gays. VideoFuzzy at the movies. Turning to my current collection, oh yeah, some very cool looking movies also turned up in my classic collection, but I didn't really take the time to look at them. I'm just happy I saw I had Anthony Hopkins and Ryan Gosling in Fracture and George Clooney and Michael Clayton. Looking forward to kicking back and watching those again one day. And oh, right, I think I mentioned Things to Come, a 1930s future shock think piece. Not seeing it in my write-up now. Maybe I was just telling Ralph about it. Well, either way, kind of disappointing. The Community Access channel here runs public domain movies, and around 1930, H.G. Wells posed the notion that by 1940, a Second World War would break out because of progress in technology. That war would stretch on for decades and wouldn't end until a wasting pandemic had turned about half the world's remaining population into lumbering Frankennoid zombies, which after that there'd be wreckage and ruin, and then once humanity accepted and affirmed the benefits of global progress to the concomitant suppression of faith and religion, by, say, 2035, we might once again live in skyscrapers and send manned missions to the moon. Fairly prescient by 1930s standards, Wells wrote his work in 1933, although French filmmaker Georges Méliès had already adapted Jules Verne's somewhat more fanciful mid-19th century moon venture some 3 decades earlier in 1902. By comparison, that earlier work was much more goal-oriented than Wells' meandering timeline, which traced its through line for all of future kind to bickering family members posing the same arguments across decades, sometimes seemingly in real time, and I frankly lost track of which argument was prevailing anymore and just took in what 1930s audiences got to enjoy as one grim, relatively dark vision of their monochromatic future. Vaguely interesting as social commentary, but I wouldn't track it down for the purpose.
Checking out my current collection.
Yeah, my current collection, mostly a lot of the same shows I've been watching, just I'm enjoying more what they've been doing lately on Bob's Burgers. 10 seasons in, it's tough to keep it fresh, and the mall episode kind of managed to, in ways the others so far this season hadn't, I thought. And this past weekend's featuring Keisuke Hawashi as Shinjin Kojima was reasonably clever, if a little rangy. It could have been cooked down a little longer. Oh, I see Hawashi already made an appearance in this collection in a first season episode of Brockmire. That's fun. This one had him reprise an appearance of 1970s samurai film characters beloved of Bob and Louise called Hawk and Chick. This season, Superstore has been dealing with the practical impact of union organizing, even with a sympathetic store manager, America Ferrera, as that sympathetic store manager, Amy. St. Louis got a new district manager, Justina Machado as Maya, when the old one, Jennifer Irwin as Laurie Neustadt, it would seem, could no longer hide or control her cocaine addiction, took out a regional manager with an unfortunately off-camera roundhouse kick. The drama is amped up as it appears because circumstances, because ridiculous sitcom. Maya's in the situation where she couldn't possibly not know about union activity at the store, so when she takes Amy out to lunch, Amy is sure she's being fired, but Maya is assuring her that her numbers are great. She's being a great manager, and in fact, she's probably got a future with corporate. which Jonah, Ben Feldman as Amy's boyfriend Jonah, immediately interprets as Maya manipulating Amy, and Amy grudgingly acknowledges could, yes, potentially be what Maya was doing, but now that seed has clearly been planted. Then, in The Good Place, I have not been watching this, but Twitter kindly shared a clip of Bradley Whitford's rocking out in a torn-up tuxedo from the Halloween episode of Perfect Harmony, which is still not going to entice me to watch this pandery nonsense, but you get down with your bad self. In the televisual reality I acknowledge, Superstore is followed by The Good Place, which last week ended its year-long experiment to see if humans could be redeemed, so it'll be interesting to see what they discover. As the clock was running out, Ben Koldyke, as lifelong D-bag Brent Norwalk, had become sufficiently self-aware of his own D-bagginess to it looked like he was on the verge of apologizing to William Jackson Harper as Chidi Oniganye for being awful. Can't wait to see how that affects his score. He may have to settle for the bronze. In Supernatural, God masks as his prophet Chuck persona to Becky, his ex, who's still a Sam and Dean fan and sells supernatural crafts on Etsy, but has also settled down from her fangirling to marry a nice guy and raise a couple of kids. Hubby and the kids are heading out on a camping trip, so she's got the whole day to herself to get her orders done, but Chuck shows up seeking inspiration. At Becky's urging, he taps out a Sam and Dean adventure, which at first seems like a relatively tame, contained, small-town vampire targeting cheerleaders, but after a few notes from Becky, becomes a towering family drama and about 5 minutes of torturous Sam and Dean speechifying on their car ride back. The boys believe they are operating in the wake of God's abandonment, but Chuck is still guiding the narrative, and even in his weakened state, he can still wave people out of existence, so it just seems like Supernatural has crafted this character with no real boundaries. It was like when the boys had the Colt 45 that could kill absolutely anything, so the show had to wrestle it away from them, and entire episodes got devoted to their tracking it down in order to resolve any given monster arc. The cold open dream sequence reminded us of Sam's demon blood habit as Dean is processing Rowena's death and Castiel's improbable banishment. How tortured was the writing around that particular plot point. So between that and God showing up in his run-of-the-mill prophet persona, the show is reaching back into its highlight reel to set the stage for a final showdown, which frankly should hinge on Joshua and Amara, but will more likely end up as a SmackDown for SmackDown recreation of the Season 14 finale showdown. Maybe the resolution will make more sense this time. They've already established canonically that nothing in this show takes place in our timeline, so whatever world they save isn't even ours. Besides, we're too busy destroying that one ourselves. As of episode 100, American Horror Story 1984 had a quick shift in focus away from the murders at Camp Redwood in 1984 to turning a quick buck. A Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous feature shows creepy camp counselor Margaret Booth has married well and has been buying notorious mass murder sites and transforming them into haunted theme parks and destination getaways. The murderous ghosts have taken over Camp Redwood, and, convicted for those murders, Brooke Thompson is being put to death, but some last-minute twists and switcheroos have freed Night Stalker Richard Ramirez, and, oh my heavens, Psycho Psych student Donna Chambers, as it turns out, did not execute Brooke after all, and instead helps her to escape. What a twist! Season 9 has been really strong so far, looking forward to seeing where they're going with this. It was fun to see the cameo by Leslie Jordan, longtime character actor on Will and Grace, and oh hey, they're counting on their final season here. This past week saw an appearance by Patton Oswalt as Stan Walker's brother, Karen's brother-in-law, who invited her to a high-stakes poker game to say suggestive things to her and ultimately to unload a Bush League baseball team. Of course, the A story is Grace is having a baby, so along with these high-rise hijinks involving Grubhubbers have been banned from deliveries to apartments, and oh, this was fun, Jack joined the hair club for men. Grace is dealing with what they've been referring to as a geriatric pregnancy. It did give her the opportunity to overcome some personality conflicts she's been having with a housing board official, and oh yeah, Will's tricked Jack into shaving his head. You know, nothing that happens in this show really matters anymore. It's all just good wacky fun. I'm just enjoying it for what it is. Gotta say, there was a scene in the season opener with Deborah Messing in the subway with Patricia Belcher. I recognized her more as a prosecutor on Bones or Judge Hosendike from Trial and Error. I need to just pull up that scene and stare at it again one of these days, because the editing, I don't know what was happening with it, but it was like every spoken line and response came from different camera angles, and I want to see if I can figure out from reflections in the windows what the hell they were trying to edit out or otherwise keep me from seeing in that scene. Yeah, season opener, pull it up and run it back. It's bizarre. Speaking of bizarre, Cake on FXX has continued as a surrealistic romp. I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying what's been turning up in my classic collection. I forgot to say, really enjoyed our trip out of town I mentioned last time. Vegas, baby. That was a lot of fun. Enjoying the change of seasons here, getting the snow tires back on the car this week. This current snowfall's not going to last, but mid-November, North Dakota, we know it's coming. Speaking of which, I saw something on Twitter, something about Doctor Who slated for within a couple of weeks now, November 23rd. Watch this space, it said. I can't seem to find anything official. I'm guessing BBC America will let me know, and until then, I guess I'll be watching that space.
What I've been watching.
It's been a while now, but I pulled up and took a peek at the Mr. Robot Season 4 premiere a few weeks ago, and I know I'm diving into it with no background or knowledge of what I'm watching, what Elliot's trying to figure out, who any of these people are, what they're up to, but for all of that, I found it to be fairly engaging. I mean, you can't handhold every complete neophyte when they stumble upon your show. Make them stream the backlog, but yeah, it felt like probably Christian Slater, Mr. Robot, was Edward Norton from Fight Club. Unless he's not, but he somehow alluded to tension when Elliot got stuck in that honeypot, so I don't know. It seemed like a highly stylized The Prisoner, but real world and with tech. Girl with the dragon tattoo. I don't know if people would watch a movie of what Lisbeth actually has to do in order to do and to know all of the things she has to do and know, which is the business of hacking actually secure operations has got to be at least somewhat time intensive. Like, shows about private investigators, you usually only see the part where the beautiful woman in the fedora, heels and trench coat and shades sneaks into the clandestine rendezvous for a quick info and fluid exchange, but really, Veronica Mars with a telephoto lens had to be parked in that alleyway for like 3 hours in order to capture those increasingly sharp black and white photos in 2019, and in all reality, cell phones and Uber, they could arrange to meet anywhere in town wearing anything and driving anything. It's not impossible, but it's got to be hard to track people who are actually trying not to get caught. PIs catch breaks, ne'er-do-wells slip up, but if we had to watch it in real time, I think viewers would probably switch over. Oh, that strayed from the mark, but yeah, Mr. Robot on USA Networks. Not watching it, but from what I saw, if this was a show I had been watching, I think I'd truly have enjoyed that 4th season premiere, and I wish them a glorious final season. And with that, I'm certain I'm not going to get another one of these done before Thanksgiving, so I just wanted to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and thank you so much for checking into my video cataloging project. You can check out my catalog listing along with audio links at VideoFuzzy.blogspot.com, past episodes at Apple Podcasts. Feedback is always appreciated. You can contact me through my blog or podcast sites, via email, or through my VideoFuzzy page on Facebook, or you can follow me at TJVideoFuzzy on Twitter. For VideoFuzzy, I'm Terry J. Aman. Happy viewing.
It might be amazing, it might just be scuzzy. We'll find out for sure the next video, Fuzzy.